Good morning, Boker Tov, Tzafra Tava. We're getting closer to Yom Kippur. Tonight is Erev Yom Kippur, and we are still singing Nigunim from the Slichos, and I think Tzvi has his choice. I have mine. Why don't you do yours? Oh,
Oseh Shalom
Bimrama, Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. V'yahal kol Yisrael Ve'yimru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom V'yahal kol Yisrael.
Tell them why.
What?
So they'll understand. Tell them why.
Because we said we had the Slicha today, which talked about Shalom. It was all about Shalom. And
that's in Yoni de Yoma.
In Yoni de Yoma. But I also, since we have Nigunim that we did not sing, so I'm going to sing Darkacho Elokeinu Laharich Apecho La'roim V'la'tovim V'hi Shehilosecho L'mancho Elokim Hashay. Do you know this?
You pulled another one out of your head.
Okay, so here we go. We got continued slichos. That it's amazing because you do know a lot of nigunim. Okay.
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hand.
Okay. I don't know. Here today, not tomorrow. Ches Tishrei. Today is the yahrzeit of Reb Nachman Melachovich, and also Chazdoi ben Shmuel HaKohen Prachia and Yosef Yoel Deutsch. Okay, so the Or HaYeshorim, as I mentioned, and we are going to say today's slichas, and we're getting closer.
We're getting closer
to
the edge.
To the edge. Here we go. Yud Beis. יחרד אדוני כל שפתי חלקות לשון מדברת גדולות אשר אמרו בלשוננו נגביר שפתנו איתנו מי אדון לנו משוד עניים מאין כאן אביונים עתה ארום יאמר אדוני אשית בישע יפיח לו אמרות טהורות כסף צרוף בעליל לארץ מזוקק שבעתיים אתה אדוני תשמרם תצרנו מן הדור זו לעולם סביב רשעים יתהלכון קרום זולות לבני אדם אחינו כל בית ישראל Ahacheinu, Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanesunim, B'Sara, Shivya, Omdim Bein Bayam Uvu, Bein Bayam Basor, Hamar, Yerachem Aleim, Yotziyim Mitzara, Lerevacha, Omerfel Eliora, Umishibet Legeula Hashla, Agala Uvizman Korim, Namar Meitzaviv Rishayim Yisalachon, Arum Tzadikim. Around. Concerning. Arum Tzadikim. Drehen sich die Rishoyim. Ze zu schädigen.
Was drehen sich Warum dem Tzadikim?
So they shedikin was like shut, is to harm them. Shedikin.
Shedigan?
Yes, shin ayin dalad yud gimel nun. Shedikin.
What is that?
To harm. It says. That's what it says.
Shedigan?
Okay, it says Saviv Rishayim Yisalechem Arum de Tzadikim Dreyen de Rishayim Zeitzu Shedikin.
Shedigan.
Okay, but I really would prefer if I can get that pronunciation app. Korum Velus Zalus Livnei Adam Azoivi a Vizel. What do you think a vizel would be? I'd say a weasel.
Yeah.
Tir Velcha Vil Fressen mentioned. I don't know weasels that eat people, but in the river is nicht da kein Hoft.
Hoft.
Hoft is hope. There's no hope. As there are oramen vet nitzel werden, nor durch Hashem Yisborach. The only way they will be saved is through Hashem Yisborach. And apropos
to
your
the day.
question of yesterday, when we were in a traffic jam, and you gave me a hint, it ends with macht, so it's yengemachts. Yengemachts is jam. Okay?
Yain?
Yeah, yengemachts.
Yud.
Yud, nun, gimel, ayin, mem, aleph,
Chaf
chaf,
tes.
chaf, chaf tzadik. Chaf, yengemachts.
With a tzadi?
Yeah, that's what I have. That's what I found. By the way, Google must have a different Yiddish than a lot of other Yiddish. I find that they've done it that way. But that's my Yiddish for today, and I just want to start at least some of the yard sites. Reb Noach ben Rebbe Mordechai nolad b'shnat 1774 v'niftar b'ches Tishrei shezeh hayom ב-1832 למד חסידus me'aviv Reb Mordechai Melechovich. When I say a lot of these Gedolim that Shmayahu gets, and I find you don't really know them, except maybe the Or Yeshorim. You might have heard of the Or Yeshorim, the Sfarim. But anyway, he was a Talmud of Reb Shlomo Mekalin and Reb Baruch Mimeshbej. These are Hasidic.
Who's this? Who's that?
That's Chabad. That's Chabad.
Who's that guy?
I forgot his. I have it. They sent me a private notice in my mailbox, and I never heard of the guy. Anyway, but now we know him.
He's nameless.
He's not. He will be named full soon.
On the
המשך.
poster, he's nameless.
I know, that's interesting. Himshich Shoshala Slonim. So he was basically a continuation of the Slonim dynasty. Biyozo ben Shloshim Shesh, when he was 6 star, Niftar Aviv, his father passed away. V'chol achzim hayu muchadim b'deya shehu tzarich liot mamalim makomo shel Aviv. Aval hu chashiv she'Reb Michoel b'chir talmid shel Aviv tzarich liot manig. How do you like that? He was next in line because of his father, and he said, you know what? The best of his Talmidim. Instead of me, as the progeny, you should take his Talmidim. But the Chassidim didn't want to accept it. So Reb Noach b'koach, Reb Noach b'koach. Amar Reb Michoel Atzmo Reb Noach Rov Sifriya Chumashim Kruim B'tzchiloson V'yamaschim B'Noach. How do you like that? They tried to get him, but he said most of my Chumashim are torn, and they all start with Noach. So that's a way of getting Reb Noach. Anyway, with that, that's today's. And
we wish you
an erev, and a good appetite, hearty appetite.
start to drink a lot of water.
And I suppose, do you get as much schar for drinking as you get for eating? I would say yes, because the inuyim are achila and shtia. So the question is, what do you drink? No, you drink water. That's a good way. I don't think it's a good idea to drink anything else, because you don't want to be dehydrated beginning of the fast. And what else do you have? Do you have grapes? And what else? Like farfas, the farfas.
Grapes are very good.
Grapes
and
are
water.
Yeah, water. And that's. Baruch Hashem, we should.
Be'ezer Hashem. Abolenu l'toiva.
Latova, with this, the Kohen Gadol should come out, and we should be very happy. The Simcha, we should say the tefillah. Okay,
Mari Kohen.
Mari Kohen, are you?
Mari Kohen.
La 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 Mari Kohen. Okay.
Do you do a dance when they sing that?
We just covered it. Oh, what did I drop?
That's out of a Western movie, isn't it? Okay, drop it.
Drop it. Draw.
Drop it.
Draw. And Art Nagy, I don't know if you remember Art Nagy. Draw was, he used to have a show on how to draw.
We sing about him every Shabbos. Draw ye craft.
Draw ye craft. Boy! I'll roll. You're an achala. Okay. Yishkayach. Chaim Tovim. Okay, punsters. That's what we are. Okay, so אנחנו עושים לאחל לכולם Erev, the eve of Yom Kippur, and the Yom Chi'i is Ki'ilu, Tzom, which is, you would think it's not so hard. All you have to do is just eat a lot. But you know, for you to have the right kavanas, the right thoughts, when then Yom Chi is, if it were Yom Kippur, that's a real feat, and that is a real challenge. But we'll talk about it tomorrow on Erev Yom Kippur. Okay, so we were talking about Reb Noach. There is a real breeze over here. Gam Reb Noach kmo aviv, haya nasi Eretz Yisrael, achrei hapilug bein Reb Avraham Mikalisk levein Reb Shneur Zalman Miladi, mina Reb Avraham es Mordechai Melechizevich l'nasi Eretz Yisrael. So I ask Shmaryahu, if you're listening in at this point, what was the machlokus? What was the pilug? What was the cause of the pilug between Reb Avraham Mikalisk and Reb Shneur Zalman Liadi? That's my question to you today, Reb Shmaryahu. Reb Noach lo katav sefer, lo nahag lomar divrei Torah barabim, b'shel kach korai elav talmido Reb Moshe mikubrin et hapasuk ein omer ve'ein dvarim. B'chol zot b'chol haaretz yatsa kolam, aber b'chol zot divrei Torata hayu nufutzim. Ha'admor mislanim Reb Shalom Noach Brzezinski, Baal Nesiva Shalom, rikez et Torasam shel Admor Slanim. Kobrin v'lechovich v'sefer Torah Avos. Moshe Chaim Kleinaman Ha'or Yeshorim. Toldota v'Torah v'Reb Noach nimtzayim b'chelik sheni shel Or Yeshorim, ha'chelik hazeh nikra Imrei Chaim. Reb Noach lo hishirach rabbanim v'chasidei lechovich avru berubam el Moshe mekubrim rak ma'atim nishur eitzo Reb Mordechai chotno shel Reb Noach v'chelik nichbad avar Reb Shlomo Chaim Mikonig nechto shel Reb Mordechai v'lechavich. Avodato shel Reb Noach hayta ba'ofen zeh shel Mordechai mishalno bo amar alav she'ein yodea im shavak chayim mirov ahavat Hashem o mirov yirot Hashem. Harofe shetipo amar la'acha ptiroto beinechem pela madua niftar pitom hayarak ben chamishi v'shmone. אבל בעיניי פלא יותר איך היה חי עד עכשיו. הגם שדרכו היה להגיד תורה ברבים, לא להגיד תורה ברבים, פעם מאוד הפסירו בו להשמיע דברי תורה, אז אמר, אלו דברים אשר תדבר אל בני ישראל. אומר רש"י, לא פחות ולא יותר. הסביר רב נוח, כלומר, כל אחד ואחד כפי בחינתו מדרגתו, רק מי שיכול לומר
באופן כזה הוא יאמר דבר תורה, ואילו לא יאמר. רוב ענוותיו אמר אני לא יכול, אך מפני שהייתה הוראת שעה יצא מגדרו וטבעו. אוקיי, עד כאן היורצייט של רב נוח מלקוביץ'. עכשיו אנחנו מגיעים ליורצייט של חסדאי בן שמואל הכהן פרחיה. נולד ב-1604 ונפטר ב-1677. נולד בסלוניקה, יוון. למד אצל חיים שבסי, מחבר תורס חיים. שימש רבה בקהילת איטליאן הישן בסלוניקה, ואחר כך היה דיין וראש ישיבה. בשנת 1671 היה רבה הראשי של סלוניקה. מי היה בניו? חיים, שמואל ואברהם, והוא בעצמו היה מחבר תורס חסד, עדוס, ביעקב, פרח, משה, אהרון ותורס משה. אוקיי, עוד היורצייט יוסף יואל דייטש, שנפטר ב-1856, למד אצל יהושע השל בבד, מחבר שלש תשובס ספר יהושע, משה פודהצר. ב-1829 שימש כדיין בבית דין טרנובל, והתכתב, הוא היה התכתב, is corresponded עם החסם סופר. ב-1838 התנגד לשלמה יהודה רפפורט. ב-1840 היה רב במונסטריף, ב-1851 רב בחודרוב, והוא היה מחבר של תשובת יד יוסף. עד כאן היורצייט של היום. אז אנחנו עכשיו לומדים חס תשרי את פרק תשיעי, ממשיכים עם העניין של נטילת ידיים. השיר זה רביעיס לכל יד, ובזה לא יצטרך להיזהר בהרבה דברים, צריך להיזהר. A person who puts at least revius of water for each hand, and kol adam baki, person doesn't know exactly what a revius is. In order to remove any doubts, no til b'sheva yisbarach. Should you wash each hand with a plenty amount of a lot of water. Mikol makom yesh linhog dem yesh lo mayim afilu natal kol hayad merviz yishbach leim mayim shneim. And our minhag is that even though you poured a lot, maybe more than revius on one hand, you should repeat it and reap on the same hand. Go back and forth and pour it on it a second time. Not lim natilas yadayim bein al gabe kli or bein al gabe karga. You can do natilas yadayim whether on the ground or on some sort of kli. Paragraph chavches. Yishbach revius mayim alayad bevat achas adakona shilzroa. You should at one time pour as much water as possible on each hand up to the wrist. V'hainu aitzbos v'yad lepochos ad sof kishrei aitzbos b'mokom shebuchar b'miyad. V'chein ein li tel yodav mechli shepiv tzar. Not a good idea to use a vessel, to use a netilas yadayim cup that is narrow on the top, because then she'en hamayim yordim bevat achat, because the water comes out slowly and not at one time. Vataz katav calls matcha ein posik milazuv, as long as it doesn't stop dripping. Mikri shvichas achas, that's considered one pouring. V'afal pisha ein ba bevat achas, even though it comes out drip by drip, but that's considered a stream. Okay, paragraph 29, Chavtes. Tzorich lizahar mechatzitza. Person has to make sure that there's no separation. In other words, when you wash your hand, there shouldn't be a covering such that it's so thick or sticky that it prevents you from washing the hand, because in effect you're washing the item that's separating the hand. Shelo yetit o afar, that should not be any dirt or tachas etziporin under your nails that would prevent the flesh from being washed. Mashu yotza chutz lebasar aval mashu tachas etziporin neged abasar ein achotzeis. But if you have some dirt that's under the nail and next to the flesh, that's not chotzeis. Kivan shehu davar mu'at, because it's a minuscule amount. Ein derech bnei adam hakbir al zeh. People don't consider it a chatzitza. Aval shelo keneged basar, but if it's not next to the flesh, hakol makbidim, everybody is makbid. V'af shehu eino makbid b'teilah data is called. Even if he himself doesn't mind it, but since most people mind it, his own personal subjective feelings are considered, put on the wayside compared to everybody else's. Bishar hayad akol chutzetz imhu davar nidbak. Okay. Paragraph 30. Afilu davar shemachase kol hayad. However, if there's something that covers the entire hand, in darko b'chach, if that's the way it's always, eino chotze. So it's not. It's, in other words, it's not usual. It's unusual. Kagon, for example, mishahu tzovea. A person's a painter. V'yodav tzvuos, and therefore he has paint all over his hands. Oshahu kosev tamid, or he's a scribe. That's ba'os meluchot tzaviyot, and his hands are full of ink. So that's not considered a chatzitza. However, if he has paint and he has ink, and that's not his profession, he's not a scribe or a painter, it's considered chotzeis. When you wash your hands, if you have a ring on it, you should remove your ring, because that's a chatzitza. However, it's a loose ring. If it's a loose ring, b'di'evid also lo nitila. It's if you've already washed your hands with the rings on, as long as the water can go through the ring because it's loose, then you don't have to. Then it's considered nitilas yadayim. Lamed paragraph Lamed Aleph 31. Yivorech al nitilas yadayim koden nigov. You wash your hands, and before you dry them, you say the bracha Asher Kedishanu v'Mitzvosav v'Tzivanu al Netilas Yadayim. Lo birach kodem haniguv. If you did not say the bracha before you're drying your hands, Sofikim Yavorach, then it becomes a question whether you should say the tefillah. Lachar, say the bracha after drying your hands. Kodem hamosi, before the mosi. La'achar sheyivorech hamosi, and after you already made the motzi, then at that point, if you remember you didn't say Nitilas Yadayim, you do not make the bracha then. Paragraph 32. Mutar lishbar hakerach b'Shabbos kedei litol mayim litol yodav. You're allowed to break up the ice so that you can get water in order to wash your hands on Shabbos. Paragraph 33. Imhu b'derech. What happens if he's already traveling? And there's no water. In front of him at least 4 million distance, and behind him at 1 mil. Then he could either wear gloves or wrap a napkin around the food, the bread, below netilas yadayim. Then you can actually eat without netilas yadayim. But if there's a question whether 4 miles ahead he will find water, and he's famished, then he could also at that point use a napkin or something to cover the food and eat it that way. What happens if it's dangerous on the way where he goes? For him to search for water would be dangerous. Mutar lechol gamkein b'mapa. Then you also could use the cloth, the covering, of the food. Vayoshev bebeso masik v'chayodam dina be'achlo. And a person who's in his house has a din of only looking a meal behind him. It has the same din. And now we come to the last paragraph before we continue tomorrow, Erev Yom Kippur, Lamedal 34, Yesh O Takana, B'Shas Avchach, in a time of emergency, V'mokom She'em Mitzuyim L'Mayim, and if he does not have water, Be'ez Achila, one time when he eats, Ve'en Yochol Lelech L'Kapes Achamayim, and he cannot go and search for the water. Oh, B'Shachwes B'Shach Shenotel Yadav L'Tfilah, so he can, perhaps this is an Eitzah, that when he washes his hands for Shachwes, Matashi is Damin Lo Mayim, Notel Yadav B'Li Bracha, then he could wash again if he finds water later on in the day without a bracha. Umatna, and he should have in mind Sheyeh Netila Zu Olalo Kol Hayom Va'az Mutar Alecho. If you don't feel that you might find water later on for your Su'udah, you can actually early in the day wash your hands and have in mind too that it would be good enough for washing your hands later. But we'll learn more about that tomorrow. And with everybody, I wish everyone good preparations for Yom Kippur. Good idea to read the Vidui, and also in this chat we posted, Yehuda Singer posted, and I also posted what the Kohen Gadol does and the importance of knowing the tefillas of Yom Kippur. So prepare. It's a good idea to prepare for Yom Kippur. Chaim Tovim.